such a pleasure to work on this panel with you all. I thought we could start with just sharing a little bit about our backgrounds. And I know we've kind of all come to tech from different means and different kind of starts. And so I thought we could just start by sharing a little bit about what's kind of been your journey so far in working in technology and particularly as kind of a woman in tech as well. So maybe I'll begin with Yuko, if you want to start and just share a little bit about your background story, and we'll go around, and then we've got some questions just to kind of think through some roadblocks and challenges and some successes over the years, as well as we're going to kind of close with some thoughts around how could we build a more inclusive workforce and what could this next generation really look like as we keep growing. So yeah, Yuko, you want to start?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who is listening here today. So I was interested, my interest in tech sort of started when I first got my computer when I was around 7 or 8 years old. So only around 8 years ago. And at first, I just started exploring Microsoft Office and then getting more into digital design. And I eventually got to coding when I was around 9 years old through Johns Hopkins online program that teaches Scratch. And that's when my passion in tech really started. Since then, I went to a pretty math-focused school in San Francisco where we did coding just as much as we did English, for instance. So I was surrounded by a lot of people in Silicon Valley, so a lot of tech. And now I'm an online school student, so all of my schooling is reliant on technology, and I connect with my classmates, my friends, my teachers, all through a computer. So yeah, this is a really exciting conversation, and I'm really looking forward to discussing the upcoming topics.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Yuko. And also so cool as we're moving to this kind of online workforce, what that looks like in learning and also in the way that we work. So cool to have you. Thank you. Ashwini, do you want to share next about your journey?
Thanks everyone who's joined in today. So I was, okay, to talk about my schooling or college, I was someone who was more interested in commerce and accounting. And how did I tumble into technology? That was, my exposure to internet and mobile phone. As a kid or as a school-going kid, you have access to internet, and for the first time you're amazed by the amount of information that's out there, right? So you can know a lot of things, learn a lot of things, and apply. So this is how it got me going. And in college, I transitioned into computers, and I got my bachelor's in computer application. And from there, it all started. And with EF, last few years, I've been working closely with a lot of technology teams. So that's been my biggest exposure to whatever's happening out there with respect to technology.
So cool. We're so glad to have you at EF. Fantastic. Cecilia, you want to share a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Start saying thank you for everyone that's listening in. So my background is from gaming. I started with computers quite early age as well, even if I'm a little bit older. So this was really old computers, but then I started gaming when I was around 13 and competed a lot in gaming. Mostly CS and Dota, which was really popular back then. And I think that's where it all started. Also started a little bit with coding, started my own companies. Yeah, and then went into school, learned a little bit more. And then my big passion is in e-com. And right now, I switched a little bit later in life. And now I think it's about the organization and how we build strong organizations to support tech.
Love it. I love it. And gaming, I know just from some of the students that I've taught over the years, I know actually starting with video games is how a lot of kids get interested in building technology and kind of starting early on. But so cool that you started there and then all that you've done since. And I can just share a little bit about my background. So actually, when I was in high school, I nixed out computer science as something that I was interested in. I think as a young woman didn't think that it was something that was for me, and didn't see that many folks in the classes around me that looked like me or that were kind of interested in the things that I was interested in. So I ended up studying psychology and anthropology when I was an undergrad. And then ended up getting recruited and working at Disney Imagineering in the theme parks. And we started to build apps for the theme parks. And I started to realize that my interest in people and in behavior and behavior change was actually really complementary to building technology, because there was kind of this cool intersection of technology and behavior. And so I ended up getting my PhD in this program called Technology and Social Behavior, which was half computer science and half psychology, kind of looking at how do you build technology that shapes behavior change. I spent some time at Facebook and started a nonprofit while I was there that was focused on helping women learn how to code. So we focused on helping high school girls change their stories about computer science, and are now focused on women who are also incarcerated, who are in prison, and kind of changing their stories about career trajectories in computer science for them when they leave prison. So it's been a big passion area of mine, just thinking about how do you change the face of technology, and gotten to work at EF now for the past 2 years in this emerging technology and innovation team, really thinking about how technology can shape where our travelers go and how they engage with the world while they're traveling. So a little bit about my story, but wanted to kind of start the discussion this morning now, kind of thinking a little bit about what your experience has been working in technology, specifically kind of what you've seen that's gone well, what you think that's been a challenge, or any setbacks you've experienced. And I also think it's kind of cool as a panel, we're all calling in from different parts of the world. So we thought maybe we could start a little bit with just sharing a little bit about what it's been like working in technology in your country or in the region with which you work. So I thought maybe Cecilia, if you want to share a little bit about kind of what it's been like in where you are, and kind of any things that you've been seeing and think have been important in your success in this industry where you are.
Absolutely. So as Lydia said in the intro, today I work in Zurich, but I grew up in Sweden, actually far out on the countryside of Sweden, like with 100 population on a farm. And what I think is unique with Sweden and was forming my life quite early on was the access to internet. So when I started competing, that's 20 years ago now, when I went for my first loan, which is bigger computer games. So this is quite far back, and we still already then had quite good internet in big portion of the country, which really formed us. So I see that for the last 10, 15 years, we have had quite a nice amount of tech companies coming into it. And I think talking about tech and diversity and making it possible for everyone, a big part of it is countries' possibility to give you computers and internet and a good infrastructure to kind of support this, which I'm super grateful growing up in a country that supported that. Sweden actually have, see here, the second highest number of unicorn companies per capita in the world. The only one better is Silicon Valley. So we can see that this has been a really great investment. So today, what I think, one thing I really also love about Sweden is that in schools, kids get a computer. So most get a laptop today if you can't afford it yourself, or we have stationary computers for everyone. And I think this is one of the keys actually to build a really, really good, diverse work team in the future. And the same with university as well. So I'm really pro these kind of investments that you can do and how we as a private person even can support this. So that's how that went. And I think, yeah. No, but I'm really, really interested in hearing how it was in different parts of the world and how that kind of shaped what kind of companies that is today in your countries.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I don't know, Yuko or Ashwini, if you want to share on your end. I'll just say that I have seen quite a rise in youth learning how to code here in the United States. I think there's been quite a kind of, so I read an article the other day saying that coding was the new language that they were going to teach in schools, or one of the primary languages, just in terms of it's a way that the world can communicate and build together. So I have seen kind of that rise in youth programs. But yeah, Yuko or Ashwini, do either of you have thoughts of kind of what it's been like in your regions?
Yeah, so I was in, I learned like tech and more about coding when I was in the United States. And I agree that there's been a huge rise in technology education for young students in the US, which has been really exciting to see. But when I moved back to Japan 2 years ago, I didn't see as much of that. And that's one of the things that I really want to change about Japan. And I want to learn more about why the change has been pretty slow. But as a student, I found that if I'm in a classroom, the computer is sort of the last resort for teachers. if they can print things out and get it over with a paper, they do that. If they can use a textbook instead of using an online textbook, they will 100% use a physical textbook. So it's always the last resort, and some only used when a computer is the only option. So I think that has been, I guess, a little bit of an unfortunate observation that I found in Japan.
With India, I have to say, talking about the education, most of our universities, or colleges, or schools have been majorly technology focused, more into computer applications, right? And in the recent, or the trend has been that you see a lot of teens, maybe high school kids, a lot focused, especially in the coding. So we see a big surge of the small universities, or universities coming up with coding classes, and mostly online, right? So this is one of the trends recently. And apart from this, we see a lot of students who are fresh out of universities, focusing more on getting started with their own startups. But the biggest surge that we have seen last couple of years is the startups in technology industry.
Yeah, no, I definitely, this rise right now, and I think even seeing what's happening in Silicon Valley, but across the world, and it's actually, Cecilia, I had no idea how high that was in Sweden as well. But just kind of seeing this rise in jobs in this space, I think has put more pressure on schools, universities, and high schools to really think about what this looks like in the training. So would also love to just hear a little bit about kind of some of the highs and lows for you all, about what it's been like working in technology. I know we may have some folks on the line who are thinking about going into tech careers, but I think just hearing kind of what have you felt most proud of while working on this, or any setbacks that you may have experienced kind of while working in tech. So I know, Ashwini, do you want to share a little bit about maybe something you've worked on that you feel really proud of to start?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so one project that's really close to me, and because I was part of it, being part of the rollout team. So a few years ago, right, so we migrated our CRM system from a legacy application, which we've used for years, right? So we were so used to this application, and then we come up with an idea of as a company being out there, as technology wise. So Salesforce was something that we decided on, and a big chunk of our CRM system was moved there. And it was one of the biggest milestone for us, right? As people working in this team, or working on this technology. So this was a lot of learning for us, right? So one of the biggest lessons for us was, upskilling yourself, being open to change, and moving away from old, the old ways of working, or thought process, and moving into what's new, and what's future ready, and what's really important for you as someone who is in technology, and for the customers who are with you, right? So this was something very close to me. Apart from this, on very recently, I was part of this project called Digital Studio. So I was one of the testers with the application. So this application was mainly focused on creating this virtual setup, or virtual environment for the sales users who are talking to their customers, right? So it creates this personal touch of you being in the office, being able to easily share the contents with your customers, what they like. So this was the second most proud moment for me working in the new projects.
I love that. Just your point around kind of also being willing to pivot and kind of change. I know with technology, especially as it's like constantly changing and improving and adjusting, and new technologies are coming out kind of so quickly, especially right now I feel like COVID has only exacerbated that by a lot. It's like the Morse code of like the J curve has like gone up so significantly. So I love your point about kind of the adaptability and adjustments, and kind of working with that and being flexible, because I think that is so important in this kind of career. I don't know, Yuko, Cecilia, any things you felt kind of particularly proud of in kind of your journeys, or any setbacks that you want to share on your ends?
Oh, I will go, Yuko. I think it's really, I get so inspired by hearing about all of these success stories, and thank you so much for sharing that. But I think for me, a big thing have been to embrace failures and really like kind of celebrating that, which sounds really weird. But when I went to school and when I went to Hyper Island, we had one professor teaching us ways to celebrate when we failed. So we had to, every time in class, we had to do something really bad. Someone had to go up and say like, yes, super happy about this, which sound really weird, but it's something that I really took with me in my professional life, and that really helped. Because when we talk about tech, we normally talk about change, things that have never existed before or happened, or it is constantly moving the needle. When you do that, there's so many unknowns. So you can't accept to succeed every time. There will be failures. And I think it's important to know that failure is a way of learning. It's a great way of learning in so many different ways. So celebrate it, because it's like the fast track of learning something within your business. So that's what I want to say on failure. There's a lot of really good talks, TED Talks, and this kind of different talks you can go to, and just people like sharing these experiences and what had happened to them and how it actually helped them in their career. At EF, we even had something called the Failure Fest in Zurich. That was some trainees in Zurich that kind of had this fest to just share their failures and how they learned and how that actually helped the organization grow. But I do think it's really important to have an organization to support this, and especially leaders and managers that kind of see the strength in this. So you feel supported, and not that a failure is a true failure. Failure is just one step of finding what we really want to do with tech. So it's a lot about also the organization should support this. And we as leaders need to get the tools to, get people to dare to do it and test.
Yeah, I love that. Makes me think, actually, when I was working at Facebook, when you entered, there was a big sign in my team that said like, fail fast, fail often, which was just like a reminder every day, like, this is such a part of the process of coding. It's a part of the process of life, but I think coding only exacerbates it because you're seeing the errors so quickly. And I know we also, with our students for Brave, when we're teaching them to code, it's actually, I've often felt like coding is the best lesson in life, of just like having these errors come in and just seeing that as normal. There has been some research that's shown that when women see that, the failure, they think that it's them. And actually the research also showed that when men saw it, they thought it was the computer, which I thought was just kind of an interesting dynamic. But I do think it is often, it's just part of the process of it. And I think it is really important, both as women and as men, and kind of across all spectrums of genders, thinking a lot about how, this is not a personal thing, it's just part of the process. And it's so important that we talk about it and share when we fail and think through what happened and continue to tweak and iterate. Because it really does make us stronger and makes what we're building much stronger as well. So I do think it's important to celebrate. Love the idea of Failure Fest as well. I don't know if Yuko, if any other thoughts, otherwise we can start to move a little bit to more inclusivity. Any other thoughts on your and Yuko? Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I just wanted to add in there that I've had experiences of like being one of the only girls in the room, especially in tech or any STEM focused areas. Like I was the only girl in my sixth grade, like my entire grade when I was in San Francisco. And so I would say that was probably one of the biggest setbacks. But on the other hand, the projects that I'm most proud of are the ones when I've been surrounded by really amazing women and girls who have sort of, we encourage each other, we support each other. And those are the sort of projects that have been really amazing to be part of. So there's balance on both sides.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Yuko, maybe just I know we're going to move a little bit now to thinking a little bit about what would a more inclusive workforce look like? Of how has this, the workforce changed, which we know in wonderful ways it is starting to change, but just kind of curious to hear your thoughts around like what would a more inclusive workforce look like in technology?
So I think one of like the most common ways like diversity has sort of increased in like not just gender, but also like race, sexual orientation and more has been through, purposely trying to balance it out. And I think that has positively benefited like a lot of people, like no matter what their gender is or no matter what their race is, because it creates sort of a room where you have perspectives from different like islands But something that I've experienced due to this program, and I think programs like these need to be executed in a careful way, is that I've had experiences where it's implied that my spot and the spot of other girls there is due to such programs, and it's not due to merit, it's not due to what we can do or what we can add to the team, but rather it is because we are girls and they wanted to tick a box. So I think that a lot of companies and schools and businesses, they need to they feel a lot of pressure to say, hey, we're doing this program, we're purposely increasing diversity, but in doing so it can create tension. So I want to see a little bit more of ways to carefully execute such plans in order to create an environment that's not just diverse, but also supportive and encouraging of the diversity that's there.
Love that. Yeah, I know we had been looking a little bit about how do you actually also, when you're changing the names of courses, how do you make them more inclusive for all to actually want to sign up for the class? And so it was interesting. There was also a nuance of just saying Intro to Computer Science versus Intro to Computer Science for Social Impact. And a lot more women signed up for the courses, or those identifying as women signed up because they felt they saw the impact of the course a little bit more in the title. So there are some interesting kind of tweaks in, I think, the way we train, the way we set up courses, and also create these supportive environments when you enter. That I know we've been looking at actually also for female engineers, having an area of the room that had a ponytail holder, areas with scrunchies for women to use to put up their hair, made them feel right when they entered, like they belonged more, like there was a space for them when they entered. Because anyway, so just little nuances in I think the learning environment can also really shape the way you feel supported when you enter. You feel that you belong there as well. So yeah, curious, Cecilia or Ashwini, any other thoughts on your ends around kind of what a more inclusive workforce could look like, or your vision for that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as mentioned before, I came in this from a gaming point of view, and I really remember I was preparing for this talk, so I was reminiscing a little bit about my gaming time. And my first one, called Grand Party, it was in Sundsvall in Sweden, and I think there were 5,000 people competing. And if I remember correctly, there were 2 girls, which one of me were me. And I just during these 25 years active, seen huge changes, but there's absolutely so much left to do. But tying a little bit back, while we're talking about how these tech scenes look for different countries, I think we really need to be also important that we need to start from the the ground up. Do we inspire enough women or girls today? From kindergarten to up to 9th grade, do we inspire them? Do we tell them they are welcome and this is a fun job and a lot of opportunities and fun companies? Where do you start with your interest of tech, and how do we as companies, if we want to have a diverse workforce in the future, where can we start already now and can create and inspire the next generation that is come? And this is not, this is for everything, about economical backgrounds, about sexual orientation, about race or ethnicity or religion. Everyone, are we inspiring them enough? And who do we want to see be our coworkers in 10 years? I think I love all of these programs and what you are doing, Yuko, giving so much to today, but also to look a little bit in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think your representation matters so much. It affects our success as, as a community, as a world. And we know even at EF, that's really been one of the goals we focus in on, is how do you bring these different voices together to build and create and solve important problems. So I do think also representation and leadership matters, having leaders. And we found a lot that when the girls entering our coding program see their coaches that look like them, that come from similar backgrounds, that have done similar careers, it really shapes their thoughts around what they can do themselves. And so I think just a point for that as well. I know we're almost up on time, so I'm going to give kind of our last little question area, and then Ashwini, if there's anything you had thoughts around inclusive, feel free to bring that into your kind of closing remarks. But would love to kind of close with us thinking a little bit about what it means to support this next generation. I'd say, kind of 2 questions in this. I think one, if there are any things that you're really excited about as we move forward, any trends that you're seeing in the world that you think could, really shaping the way that the future is going to look and feel, would love to hear that. And then I think also if there are any tips for folks on the call who may be interested in going into technology, who are thinking about going into these careers, any thoughts about what you'd say to them as they're exploring and thinking about going into technology? So yeah, any trends you're seeing? Let's start with maybe trends that you're excited about and that you're thinking about, and we'll close with feedback.
Okay, so what I'm seeing and what I'm excited about here is that we're seeing a lot of mobile applications, and it's kind of creating spaces for people to get in and share their ideas, and it's more of being or collaborating, ideating, right? So this is one thing I'm really excited about that's happening currently here. And it's just not one thing, it's a lot of things, right? So it's either helping you if you're a starter, or if you're already in it for a lot, for a longer time, and you have this great ideas and experience that you want to share with people. Maybe it's kids, it's teens or young adults, or somebody who is late in their age but who are interested to get into tech and learn more, right? So this is one of the trends that I'm seeing currently, especially in India.
I love it. Yuko or Cecilia, anything on your ends of trends that you're excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much happening right now. I mean, it's been a lot of happening the last 10 years, but every year, like, it's booming. I am really, really interested in a lot of the application and things that is happening that is helping companies be more sustainable than they were before. And I think tech have shown being a super, super great tool for this. From everything from, this is not new technology per se, but I mean, streaming music. Before we produced and bought records, we don't have to do that anymore. When we buy clothing today, and there's a lot of technology going into helping you resizing. I've seen avatars and I've seen all of these 3D scanning things coming, so we don't ship clothing unnecessary. We are having on-demand products that you can design yourself, so you only get exactly the production that needed and when you want it. And we have AI, we have blockchain helping us with really secure data transfer, and I think that's blockchain is going to change so much, and we're just in the beginning of it. I don't even think we can imagine what's going to happen with IT security with that. So it's a lot actually. But everything that focuses on sustainability is a win in my book, and the same with diversity and kind of helping us create a more sustainable earth with everyone is welcome and everyone feels secure. And I think tech is going to have a huge role in this.
No, I love that. I think that's where the intersections to me of technology with kind of some of these big global issues, I think is really where I think the two can both really complement each other as well. And Yuko, on your end, anything you're excited about?
Yeah, two things. The first being that I think access to technology and the age at which like students or like children get start using technology is becoming younger and younger. And I think especially with COVID pushing even elementary school students to learn online and have to use technology, I think it's been really exciting seeing how technology is used, and there's like 8-year-olds creating apps and everything like that. It's been super exciting to see. And the second one is that I've seen more girls and more women in technology before, and this is just like in the past like 5 years. But like when I was like around like 10, 11, and I was just really getting started, there were so many spaces when it was such a small percentage, like 5%, 10%. But nowadays, it's not exactly at 50, but I've been at events where it's around 50, and that's been super exciting. I'm hoping at some point we'll reach exactly 50%. And yeah.
Yes, same. I think it's coming, and definitely the numbers are really suggesting that times are changing. I'll just add, I'm excited a lot about how technology is shaping personalization, whether that's learning, that's work. I know we're seeing it in travel. You know, how can technology really shape the kind of personalized experience? Even when I was at Disney, we were looking at like magic bands and ways of kind of customizing where you go and what you do when you enter. But I think there's just a lot of kind of meeting people where they are and what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, that I think technology really allows to do so at scale, which is to me super exciting. I know we're up on time. Lydia said we could go a few minutes over, so I'm giving us like a tiny bit of grace, but I know folks can feel free to leave if you need to. But the last thing I just want to say is one piece of advice that we want to just close with. If anyone has any advice specifically about entering to tech, would love to hear that as we close.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna split it. So, and one device is for leaders, and one if you are now looking into starting working with tech. Because if you look into starting working with tech, I know everyone is saying this, but put the users first and understand the users. No matter what you're going into, if it's coding or whatever, I think having a great understanding of users is really, really important. So if you haven't had any course or anything in UX design, my tip to you would be look into UX design. If you want to learn it by yourself, fine, or go a course to a university that you think is good. Because having that as a foundation is going to help you with all your projects. So that's my pro tip on the side. And for leaders, it is dare to fail and celebrate it. Get the tools to support your team with it. Have really open dialogues and feedback, and learn how to give and receive feedback in a professional way. What's the tools, what out there? And the third is to have as diverse teams as you possibly can have. Because when we look at a lot of the systems or technology that will be produced in the future, we will have a lot of different people using it. And if we have a diverse team, we will look at all the problems in different angles. We will understand how it is to, if you're from the countryside or the city, or if you're from China or Sweden or all of these, you look at problems differently. With a diverse team, that will support you to kind of create the best tech possible. So really, really put some extra time in hiring and making sure you get as diverse team as possible, because that's how success actually look like.
Love it. Thank you so much. Ashwini, do you have any final words?
Yes, thank you, Cecilia. That was actually great. I would also vouch for embracing your failure, and most importantly, what you've learned from it, right? So you carry it on. So next time, these were the things I made mistakes with. So what do I improve on, right? So I think apart from that, for leaders, I would say, being open-minded and, not be afraid of changes, or, being able to adapt quickly. And most importantly, open for upskilling yourself.
Love it. Thank you. And Yuko?
This is all for, I think, a pretty young audience out there, but I think as there's like increasing pressure to like choose like what you want to do when you're older, like choose like the thing you want to study in college, like what major do you want to do? And I just think curiosity has been really important in my life. I don't think I would have reached out to tech, like learning more about coding and technology in general, if I wasn't curious. And a lot of my other interests that I have, like economics or even gender equality, I've gotten because I was curious about the topic and I would learn more about it. So I think though there's a lot of pressure to choose, I think I've taking a step back and sort of allowing yourself to make time for things that you haven't exactly decided on yet, because in the future, and I haven't even decided yet, but in the future, I think it's come in really handy, and it's allowed me to be a part of really amazing conversations like these.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll just close on my end with just saying, I do think that we are strongest at these intersections, coming together with different backgrounds. I think your points around kind of building diverse teams that really represent different perspectives only makes what we build stronger and better. And also just say, kind of for younger folks who are thinking about, or at any age, kind of thinking about entering technology, but may feel some ambivalence. I know someone said to me, kind of don't drop out too soon. Like, don't just assume that this isn't something for you. And also we have a tendency to think kind of quickly, like maybe I'm not good enough at this, so I'm not going to do this career, which is just, often wrong. Everyone is kind of going in at different levels and understandings, but I've just seen so many folks who kind of push through that initial fear and have had hugely successful careers in technology building and creating. So just don't drop out too soon. Just keep trying. And there's so many great programs out there. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you're interested in talking about it or learning more, or thinking about kind of what your career could look like in technology, if it's an area that you're interested in, no matter your gender. I think we just want, having more creative and minds and diverse perspectives in technology will only bring our world forward and be more like inclusive as we build and grow together. So thank you all so much. Thanks to those who stayed longer for the kind of the final feedback. But again, feel free to reach out to us. And I'm speaking on behalf of the panel, but feel free to reach out if you need anything or want to talk through kind of your journeys or what you're thinking about. And thank you so much to Lydia and team for putting this together so we could have a great dialogue from across the world to think about this topic.